Michael Adewale had everything money could buy, but deep down, he felt empty. As the only son of Chief Bayo Adewale, a wealthy businessman with companies in oil and real estate, Michael lived a life of luxury. He stayed in a huge mansion in Ikoyi, Lagos, filled with expensive art and marble floors. Every comfort was at his fingertips. But somehow, life in that mansion felt cold and suffocating. Michael was 28. He was good-looking in a quiet way, with gentle eyes that often looked sad. Unlike other rich young men around him, he didn't care much for flashy parties or showing off. He preferred simple pleasures, reading classic books, listening to old jazz music, and thinking about how to make cities more eco-friendly. His father called those ideas nonsense for tree huggers. Chief Adewale, a hard and strategic man, cared deeply about power and family legacy. He wanted to make sure the Adewale name stayed strong, and for that, he had a plan. Sandra Cole. Sandra was seen by society as the perfect woman for Michael. She was the daughter of Senator Yemi Cole, a powerful politician. She was beautiful, smart, and ambitious, exactly the kind of person Chief Adewale respected. But for Michael, being with Sandra felt more like a business deal than a relationship. They didn't talk about love. They talked about parties, deals, and keeping up their image. It all felt fake. Sandra, on the other hand, was obsessed with the idea of being with Michael. She wanted control. She believed their marriage would make them the ultimate power couple. She planned everything: what they wore, where they went, who they talked to. Her laugh seemed forced. Her smile never quite reached her eyes. She was always on, like she was performing for the world. "We're meant to be, Michael," she would say, gripping his arm tightly. "Our families are already connected. This is destiny." But Michael wasn't so sure. He was tired of the rich dinners, the fake smiles, and all the talks about money. He wanted something real, something honest. He just didn't know what that was or where to find it. His life felt like a golden prison. One hot Tuesday afternoon, overwhelmed by the mansion and its emptiness, Michael decided to leave alone. No driver, no assistance. He just wanted peace. He drove to a quiet bookstore in another part of Lagos, hoping to disappear into the crowd for a while. He parked his shiny Mercedes-Benz a few streets away and walked, enjoying the realness of the streets around him. As he stepped out of the bookstore, heavy rain started to pour. People ran for cover. Michael raised his collar, ready to run to his car, when he saw her. A young woman stood under a small broken stall, soaking wet. Her clothes clung to her skin, her long hair was stuck to her face, but there was something graceful about her, even in the rain. She wasn't begging, she wasn't crying, she was just standing there, watching the rain, calm and quiet. She looked fragile, but there was strength in her eyes. "Excuse me," Michael said, walking over. "Are you okay? You're drenched." She looked up, startled. Her dark eyes were tired but deep, like they had seen a lot but hadn't given up. "I'm fine, sir," she replied gently, "just waiting for the rain to stop." "You can't stay out here," he said, worried. "You'll get sick, and it's getting dark." He paused, then made a choice that would change his life. "I have a car nearby. Let me take you somewhere safe." She stared at him, unsure. Hope flickered in her eyes, but she was cautious. "I don't need pity, sir," she said with quiet pride. "I just don't have anywhere to go right now." Michael felt something stir inside him. He said, "It's not pity, just a ride, that's all. You look like you need somewhere dry to rest." She studied him for a long time. He looked back, his concern sincere. Finally, she sighed, like she was carrying the weight of the world, and nodded. "Okay, sir, thank you." He led her to his car. The shiny black Mercedes looked out of place on the rough street. She got in, soaking the plush leather seats with her damp clothes. The air inside the car smelled of wet earth and something else. Something like quiet strength. He handed her my jacket. She took it with a small, cautious smile. "My name is Michael," he said as he started the engine. "What's yours?" "Zainab," she whispered, barely loud enough to hear over the rain. And just like that, something shifted. A new story had quietly begun.
The drive was quiet, except for the sound of the wipers sliding across the windshield. Michael felt strangely calm sitting next to Zainab. There was no pressure to act a certain way or keep up appearances. She was just real. He asked her where she lived, and she shook her head, staring out at the city lights. I don't really have a home right now," she said softly. "Sometimes I sleep in abandoned buildings or near the markets." Michael's heart sank. This wasn't just a girl caught in the rain. This was someone with nowhere to go. He couldn't just drop her off on the street after hearing that. He thought about his huge house, the dozens of empty rooms, the staff quietly moving through it like shadows. It didn't make sense to send someone like Zainab back into the night when he had so much space to spare. It wasn't like him to act on impulse, but something about this felt right. "I have a big house," he said, carefully. "Too big for one person, honestly. There are extra rooms. You could stay, just for a while, until you figure things out." Zainab turned to look at him, clearly shocked. Then her eyes narrowed. "Why would you do that, sir? What do you want from me?" "Nothing," Michael said, meeting her eyes. "You just look like you needed somewhere safe. That's all. No pressure, no strings." She was quiet for a long time, torn between distrust and desperation. Finally, she let out a slow breath. "Are you sure, sir?" "I'm sure, Zainab." He drove her to his mansion, probably a place she had only ever seen in magazines or gossip blogs. As the gates opened and they drove through the well-kept lawn, Zainab gasped softly. "This place is huge," she whispered as she stepped out of the car. "Welcome," Michael said, trying to sound casual, though he was nervous. He had no idea what he was doing, only that it felt important. They walked inside. The house staff stared, confused but silent. Michael took her to a guest room in the quieter part of the house. It was large, with a king bed, a private bathroom, and a view of the garden. "There are fresh towels in the bathroom, and some of my sister's clothes in the wardrobe. She's abroad, hasn't used them in a while. Make yourself comfortable. Rest. We can talk tomorrow." Zainab didn't say much. She just looked around, eyes wide, and then back at him, tears starting to form. "Thank you, sir," she said quietly. "Thank you." Michael left her there, feeling oddly at peace. He'd done something kind, but deep down he knew the real storm was still coming. Sandra would be furious. The next morning, Michael was sitting at the long dining table, drinking coffee, when Zainab walked in. She wore a simple dress from his sister's wardrobe, and her hair was neatly combed. She still looked fragile, but also more confident, like she was slowly coming back to life. "Good morning, Michael," she said softly, using his name like they'd known each other for years. "Good morning, Zainab. Did you sleep well?" "Like I haven't slept in years," she smiled. "I felt safe. Thank you." They started talking. Really talking. Zainab shared parts of her story, how she lost her parents young, how she had to leave her village after her grandmother died, and how she struggled to survive in Lagos. She talked about how important education was to her, even though it felt out of reach. She didn't complain or beg, she just told the truth. Michael was moved. Despite everything she had gone through, she hadn't lost her strength. She was still standing. Suddenly, the intercom buzzed. Security said Sandra was at the gate. Michael's heart dropped. He hadn't told Sandra about Zainab, knowing she would react badly. Within minutes, Sandra swept into the house, dressed in designer clothes, her face polite but clearly irritated. She had a sixth sense for trouble. Her eyes landed on Zainab immediately, who was quietly picking fruit from the breakfast table. "Michael, darling," she said sweetly, but with a sharp edge. "Who is this?" Michael stood up, instinctively placing a protective hand on Zainab's arm. "Sandra, this is Zainab. Zainab, meet Sandra." "And why is she here? And wearing clothes? What is going on, Michael?" He took a breath. "She's a guest. She needed help." "A guest? Michael, this isn't a shelter. This is our home." She turned to Zainab, her voice dripping with disdain. "Who are you, girl? What are you playing at?" Zainab stepped back slightly, but she didn't break. "I'm Zainab," she said calmly. "Michael offered me a place to stay." "Of course he did," Sandra said with a sneer. "I've seen girls like you before. Show up with sad stories, hoping to trap some rich man. You're wasting your time. Michael is engaged. To me." She threw the word engaged like a weapon. Michael stepped forward, putting himself between them. "Sandra, that's enough. Zainab is my guest, and you will respect her." "Respect?" she shouted, losing control. "I'm protecting us, our name, our future, and you're throwing it all away for some street girl?" Michael's voice was low, but firm. "She's a person who needed help, something you clearly don't understand. And you think she understands you, Michael? She's from the slums. What could she possibly give you?" Zainab had been silent, her head slightly bowed, but now she spoke, calmly and clearly. "I know what kindness looks like, and I know what disrespect feels like, and I know which one matters more." Sandra was stunned into silence. Then her face twisted with anger. "Get out!" she screamed at Zainab. "Get out of my fiancé's house! You don't belong here!" Michael grabbed Sandra's arm. "Sandra, stop! That's enough! I'm protecting us, our name, our future, and you're throwing it all away for some street girl?" Michael looked at her, and something inside him just settled. He saw rage, not love, control, not care. Then he looked at Zainab, quiet, steady, strong, and he saw something real. The choice was becoming clear. "Zainab is staying," he said firmly. "If you can't respect that, Sandra, you're free to leave." Sandra was stunned. She had never heard Michael speak like that. She stared at him, then at Zainab, her face burning with anger. Without another word, she turned around and stormed out of the mansion, slamming the door behind her. The calm after Sandra's storm was tense and heavy. Even though Michael kept reassuring Zainab, she felt like a burden. Sitting with him that evening in the large, quiet living room, she finally spoke. "Michael," she said softly, "maybe I should go. I don't want to be the reason you're having problems." Michael turned from the window and looked at her seriously. "No, Zainab, you're not the problem. Sandra is. This was going to happen anyway. You just made it happen sooner." He softened his tone. "And where would you even go? I offered you a safe place. I meant that." His words, sincere and gentle, slowly broke down the walls she had built over time. In the days that followed, they found a rhythm. Zainab, not used to sitting still, asked to help around the house. She started assisting in the kitchen, organizing shelves, prepping ingredients, always quiet and focused. At first, the head cook wasn't sure about her, but soon she saw how hardworking and humble Zainab was. Zainab began to change. Her skin looked healthier, her eyes brighter. The fear that used to hang over her slowly faded. She spent hours in the house's huge library, deeply absorbed in books. She had a sharp mind and a hunger to learn everything, from history to current events. Michael often sat with her, amazed by her thoughts and how quickly she understood things, even without a formal education. Their bond grew naturally. They shared quiet talks, laughs, and a growing respect for one another. For Michael, it was different than anything he'd ever known. Coming home didn't feel like returning to a cold, silent house anymore. It felt like peace, but that peace was fragile. Sandra wasn't done. She kept calling Michael, sometimes begging, sometimes threatening. When he refused to send Zainab away, her words turned colder. "You're making a huge mistake," she hissed one night. "My father won't stand for this. Our families have plans, big ones." She wasn't lying. Senator Cole, Sandra's father, had already started arranging the marriage with full support from Michael's father, Chief Adewale. It was all about power, politics, and money. Love had nothing to do with it. One evening, Michael was called to his father's study. The room felt tense. His father sat behind the desk, and Senator Cole was across from him, looking ready for battle. "Michael," his father began, voice cold, "your wedding is scheduled. Invitations are being printed." Michael's heart sank. "We've talked about this. I don't want to marry Sandra. I don't love her." Senator Cole scoffed. "Love? That's for dreamers. This is about legacy, power." Michael stood his ground. "I can't marry someone I don't love. It's not fair to anyone." Chief Adewale slammed his hand on the desk. "You're an Adewale. You have responsibilities. This isn't optional." Then Senator Cole added with a sneer, "And what about the girl Sandra says you're housing? That street girl?" Michael's jaw tightened. "Her name is Zainab, and she's not just some girl. She's kind, smart, and brave. She needed help, and I gave it." Just then, Sandra stormed in, uninvited. "She's trying to ruin everything," she shouted. "She wants your money, Michael. She's using you." "Get out, Sandra," Chief Adewale snapped. But she ignored him. "Michael, choose. Me, your future wife, your family, everything you were raised to be, or her, that girl." Michael looked around the room. Sandra's angry eyes, his father's disappointed face, Senator Cole's cold expression. Then he looked inward and made his choice. "I choose Zainab. I'm not marrying Sandra. The engagement is off." Everyone froze. Sandra gasped. His father's face turned red. Senator Cole looked furious. "You dare choose a street girl over everything I've built for you?" Chief Adewale bellowed. "I'm choosing my life, father," he said calmly. "I won't live a lie just to please you." Sandra screamed, "She's poisoned you! She's a witch!" Michael shook his head. "This isn't about her. It's about me. I'm done pretending." Chief Adewale's voice thundered. "Then you're no longer my son. You're cut off. Out of the house, out of the family." Michael took a breath. "If that's your choice, then I accept it." He turned and walked out. He left the rage, the pressure, and the life that wasn't his behind. He walked toward the one person who had nothing, but had given him everything that mattered: honesty, peace, and clarity. He walked toward Zainab. Into the unknown, but into something real.
Michael's decision shocked everyone. Not just his family, but the whole of Lagos high society. The broken engagement quickly became gossip, fed by Sandra's dramatic stories about how cruel Michael had been and how Zainab had manipulated him. Chief Adewale, full of pride and anger, made sure the public saw Michael as an ungrateful son who had been led astray by a clever gold digger. True to his word, Chief Adewale cut Michael off completely. His credit cards stopped working, his bank accounts were frozen, and he lost access to everything, even the clothes he couldn't carry out of the mansion. It was a harsh, calculated move meant to crush him and force him to return. But Michael had expected this. He'd prepared himself. He moved into a small apartment in a quieter, cheaper part of Lagos, a far cry from the luxury he'd known. Zainab, though nervous at first, refused to leave him. "You did this because of me," she told him, her voice steady. "I'm staying with you." Her presence grounded him. They faced their new life side by side. For Michael, everything was new. He had never cooked, cleaned, or worried about paying bills. Now he had to learn all of it quickly. He used a small amount of savings he'd hidden away, but he knew it wouldn't last. He started looking for work, using his education and experience, but without his father's name or influence, doors that once opened easily now stayed shut. Zainab, however, handled their new life with ease. She was used to surviving with little. She cooked simple, delicious meals and kept their place clean and welcoming. Her strength and down-to-earth nature became Michael's guide. She showed him how to live simply, to find joy in small things, and to be proud of even the smallest wins. One evening, as Michael stressed over more rejected job applications, Zainab noticed him pacing. "You're smart, Michael. You just need to find the right path." "It's harder than I thought," he replied, frustrated. "Without my dad's name, I'm nobody." "No, you're not," Zainab said, looking him in the eye. "You're kind, smart, and generous. Money can't buy that, and no one can take it from you." She paused. "Remember my dream? What I told you?" Michael nodded. "You wanted to go to school, to learn." "Yes," she said, smiling, "and I still do. I want to chase that dream with your help." Michael's face lit up. "That's amazing, Zainab. But how? School isn't cheap." "I'll work," she said without hesitation. "I'll do anything. And you can teach me. You know so much. You can help me get ready for the entrance exams." So they began. During the day, Michael kept searching for work and eventually landed a job as a research assistant at a small think tank that focused on urban development, something he truly cared about. The pay was low, but the work was honest, and he felt proud of it. At night, their little living room turned into a classroom. Michael helped Zainab study, teaching her big ideas, explaining tough questions, and sharing everything he knew. She was a quick learner, driven and sharp. Her hunger for knowledge amazed him. The more she learned, the more Michael fell in love with her strength, her mind, and her determination. Meanwhile, Sandra's bitterness only grew. She couldn't accept that Michael had left her, publicly and completely. She spread lies about Zainab, exaggerating her past, calling her a con artist and a user. She even used her family's power to make it harder for Michael to find work. She also tried to shake Zainab's confidence, sending cruel, anonymous messages. One text said, "You'll never be good enough. He'll leave you. You're just a phase." But Zainab had faced far worse in life. She knew what it meant when someone lashed out from pain and pride. She blocked the numbers and focused on what really mattered, her studies and her relationship with Michael. He protected her fiercely, reminding her every day that she mattered. The big moment came when Zainab sat for her university entrance exams. Michael waited outside, nervous but proud. When she came out, pale but smiling, he knew she'd done well. Weeks later, the acceptance letter arrived. She got into one of the top universities in Lagos to study business administration, a course that fit her perfectly. She had worked hard and she had made it. Their little apartment filled with joy and laughter that day. It wasn't just Zainab's win, it was a win for both of them. Together they had built something real, something earned, not inherited, something based on love, respect, and shared dreams. Word eventually reached Mrs. Adewale, Michael's mother, about how he was now living independently, and how Zainab had gotten into university. Unlike her husband, Chief Bayo Adewale, who cared deeply about status and power, Mrs. Adewale was calm, thoughtful, and deeply intuitive. She had always loved Michael in a quiet, special way, sensing his soft heart beneath the pressure of their family's world. In the past, she hadn't been able to stand up to her husband, especially about the arranged marriage. But deep down, she had always wanted Michael to find real happiness. She had listened to the gossip, heard the whispers and the rumors. She knew Sandra's true nature, and she understood how cruel her husband could be when crossed. Something in her heart told her there was more to the story than what society believed. One quiet afternoon, without telling her husband, Mrs. Adewale went to visit Michael. When Michael opened the door of his small apartment, he was stunned to see his mother standing there, so far away from the luxury of their family home. "Mother," he said, surprised and unsure. She pulled him into a tight hug, her eyes filled with tears. "My son, I've missed you." She looked around the humble space. It was small and simple, nothing like the mansion she came from. "So, this is where you live now?" she said softly, without any judgment. "Yes, Mother. It's different," he replied. Just then, Zainab walked out of the kitchen, drying her hands on a cloth. She froze when she saw Michael's mother, recognizing her face from photos and public events. Mrs. Adewale looked at her closely, not with hostility, but with curiosity and quiet concern. "Zainab," Michael said gently, "this is my mother. Mother, this is Zainab." Zainab quickly bowed with respect. "Good afternoon, Ma. It's an honor to meet you." Mrs. Adewale studied her. She didn't see the manipulative girl Sandra had described. Instead, she saw a young woman with grace, strength, and a calm confidence. Zainab's clothes were neat, her hair tidy, and her eyes full of quiet intelligence. Most of all, she saw how Michael looked at her, with love, respect, and deep care. "I've heard a lot about you, Zainab," she said kindly. Zainab's heart raced, expecting disapproval. I know my being here has caused problems, Ma." "Maybe," Mrs. Adewale replied, thoughtfully. Then she smiled, a small, knowing smile. "But sometimes trouble reveals what's real." She reached out her hand. "It's truly a pleasure to meet you. Michael told me a little about what you've been through." Zainab shook her hand, surprised by the warmth and sincerity in her voice. Mrs. Adewale sat on the small couch and quietly observed them. The comfort between Michael and Zainab, the gentle way they interacted, the love in their eyes. She noticed the books, the food on the stove, the effort they had put into their simple home. This wasn't a manipulator's home. This was a life built on love and respect. She turned to Michael, her expression a little sad. "Your father is furious. He believes you've made a terrible mistake." "I know, but I couldn't live a lie. I never loved Sandra." Mrs. Adewale nodded slowly. "I always knew you needed more than what your father offered. Even when you had everything, I saw sadness in your eyes." She turned to Zainab, her voice soft. "And you, my dear, you have a good heart. I can see it in the way you speak, in the way you carry yourself." Zainab's eyes filled with tears. She hadn't realized how badly she needed to hear those words, especially from someone like Mrs. Adewale. "Thank you, Ma. I'm just trying to build a better life." "And you're doing exactly that," Mrs. Adewale said warmly. "Michael told me you've been accepted into university. That's a big achievement." She reached for Zainab's hand again. "My son is a good man, kind, maybe too kind, but he's also strong, and he's chosen you." She looked at Michael again, her expression a little sad. "Your father wanted a big, powerful future for you, but that wasn't your future, was it? He believes money and power are everything, but sometimes the real riches are the ones we least expect." She sighed. "I can't change his mind yet, but I want you to know I'm proud of you, and I support your choice. You have my blessing." Michael felt a wave of emotion, relief, gratitude, love. His mother's quiet support meant more than anything money could buy. He hugged her tightly, thankful for her love and strength. She stayed for hours. They talked, laughed, and she got to know Zainab as more than a name or a rumor. Before leaving, she pressed a small carved wooden bird into Zainab's hand. She said, "This was my grandmother's. It's a symbol of freedom and of the courage to start a new journey. May it bring you peace and strength." Zainab held the small bird close, tears running down her cheeks. It wasn't just a gift, it was acceptance, a sign that she belonged. Mrs. Adewale's visit gave them hope, strength, and a quiet reassurance that they were not alone. In her, they had found an unexpected ally, one who loved beyond wealth, beyond pride, and beyond judgment.
Sandra was furious when she heard that Mrs. Adewale had visited Michael and Zainab, and even worse, had accepted and blessed their relationship. For Sandra, this was the final insult. It meant she hadn't just lost Michael, she had lost the entire fight. The approval of the family matriarch made it clear. Sandra no longer mattered. Her mind, used to getting its way, couldn't accept defeat. She became obsessed with revenge. The idea of Michael and Zainab being happy together, especially in a life she looked down on, made her sick. So she started plotting, carefully and bitterly. Sandra used her father's power to sabotage Michael's career. First, she did it quietly. Promotions were delayed, funding was cut off, and potential projects just disappeared. She spread lies in professional circles, making Michael seem unreliable. But Michael didn't break. Instead, he pushed harder, determined to succeed on his own. But Sandra saved her worst attacks for Zainab. Knowing Zainab's past was full of pain and struggle, she hired investigators to dig up dirt. But they found nothing bad, only a story of strength and survival. So Sandra started making things up. She spread nasty rumors online and among her social circles, claiming Zainab had once been a prostitute, that she was a gold digger with a fake past. One day, Zainab got a bunch of anonymous messages. They accused her of terrible things and threatened to go public. The messages were cruel, designed to scare her and make her doubt herself. For the first time since starting university, Zainab felt afraid. What if her teachers or classmates believed the lies? What if all her hard work came crashing down? Shaking, she showed the messages to Michael. As he read them, his face went cold with anger. "This is Sandra. She's trying to destroy you because she can't stand seeing us happy." Zainab's voice trembled. "What if people believe her, Michael? What if I lose everything?" He took her hands in his. "Then we fight. We fight with the truth. You've worked hard and you've done nothing wrong. I'll be right here with you." He contacted a trusted lawyer, someone close to his mother and far from his father's influence. The lawyer told them to collect all the evidence of the harassment. Michael also spoke to his mother. When she heard what Sandra had done, she was deeply upset. "This has gone too far," Mrs. Adewale said firmly. "This isn't just about you and Zainab anymore. This is about Sandra's toxic behavior. She has to be stopped." With the evidence in hand, the lawyer sent a formal warning to Sandra's family, a cease and desist letter, threatening to sue for defamation and harassment. Mrs. Adewale backed the action quietly, but her influence was strong. That's when things changed. Senator Cole, Sandra's father, realized a scandal like this could ruin his political career, far worse than a broken engagement. He told Sandra to stop immediately or face serious consequences. Now under pressure from her own family, Sandra's attacks began to fade. She also realized something painful. She hadn't broken Michael and Zainab. She had only made them stronger. Friends who once supported her were now tired of the drama. Even her father was disappointed in her. She had lost Michael, lost her social image, and everything she had done out of pride had only pushed her further into isolation. Meanwhile, Zainab was thriving. She was doing great in school, smart, focused, and respected. She made new friends, worked hard, and stayed grounded. She took on part-time jobs to help with expenses, proud of what she was building for herself. Michael was also doing well. His work at a think tank started gaining attention. People appreciated his ideas, and he was finally building something of his own. His relationship with Zainab grew stronger. They worked through challenges together and celebrated the small wins. Their life was simpler now, but far richer and more meaningful. One evening, Zainab came home from a long day of studying. She was surrounded by books, focused and tired. Michael watched her for a moment, his heart full. She wasn't the lost girl he had met that rainy day. She was a strong, intelligent woman who had changed his life. He walked over, gently took the textbook from her hands, and said,
Zainab. She looked up, a little surprised. Michael? Is something wrong? He knelt in front of her and pulled out a small wooden box from his pocket. Inside was a simple silver ring with a tiny star carved into it. Zainab, he said, his voice soft but serious. When I met you, I felt trapped in a life that didn't feel real. You showed me what freedom means. You taught me to be humble, to be strong, to really live. You're the kindest, smartest, most beautiful soul I've ever known. And I love you, more than I can ever explain. He opened the box. Will you marry me? Will you build a life with me? One built on love, trust, and what truly matters? Zainab's eyes filled with tears. She looked at him, this man who had stood by her, believed in her, and loved her through it all. She thought of everything they had been through, how far they'd come together. Yes, Michael, she whispered, tears running down her face. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They hugged, holding each other tightly, overwhelmed with emotion. The simple silver ring was more valuable than any diamond because it represented a love that had survived pain, judgment, and fear. A love that was true. When Michael and Zainab announced their engagement, the reactions were mixed. Most people from Lagos's elite saw it as a scandal, a sign that Michael had made a huge mistake and that Zainab had cleverly tricked him. But for a quiet few who truly knew Michael and had heard about Zainab's journey, it was a story of real love breaking through society's expectations. Mrs. Adewale, Michael's mother, was overjoyed. She had always quietly supported them.
Their wedding wasn't the kind of big, flashy event Michael's father would have planned. Instead, it was a small, beautiful ceremony in a lush garden. The guests were close friends, Zainab's university classmates, a few loyal staff from the Adewale mansion, and, of course, Michael's mother. Zainab wore a simple, lovely white dress, and her smile shone brighter than any diamond. Michael looked at her with deep love, knowing she was his true home. Married life wasn't easy. People still gave them cold looks, and Michael's father stayed distant. Michael's path was definitely harder than the one laid out for him, but having Zainab by his side gave him strength. Together, they built their life piece by piece, grounded in love and mutual respect. Zainab graduated with honors. Her success showed just how smart and determined she was. She never forgot where she came from. Wanting to help others like herself, she began volunteering at a local charity that gave education to underprivileged kids. She was passionate, and Michael, now gaining respect in the urban development space, supported her completely. Eventually, they started a small consulting firm focused on ethical, sustainable community projects. Michael brought his experience, and Zainab's growing business skills helped guide them. It was slow at first, but their honest approach and fresh ideas started getting noticed. They worked with poor communities, proving that development could make money and still help people. As the years passed, they had 2 children, a boy and a girl, who carried Zainab's quiet strength and Michael's gentle heart. Their home was modest compared to the Adewale mansion, but it was full of laughter and love. One day, Zainab was invited to speak at a national youth empowerment conference. She stood confidently on stage and shared her story, her tough past, the kindness of one man, the power of education, and the support of the man she loved. She talked about how her struggles shaped her, not broke her. She spoke about empathy and about seeing people for who they are, not where they come from. Her words touched everyone, and she got a standing ovation. In the crowd, Mrs. Adewale sat proudly, eyes full of tears, and far in the back, unnoticed, was Chief Bayo Adewale. He had come quietly, curious about Zainab's growing reputation and, deep down, missing his son. As he listened, something inside him shifted. He no longer saw the poor girl he once rejected. He saw a smart, kind woman and a real leader. He saw the way Michael looked at her, with love and pride. In that moment, the empire he had built suddenly felt cold and empty.
He left the hall quietly, full of emotions he didn't understand. Back in his grand mansion, everything felt different. For years, he thought he had built a strong legacy through wealth and power, but watching Zainab and Michael, he realized he had almost lost the most valuable things: his son's happiness, and a chance to connect with someone as remarkable as Zainab. Days passed. He kept thinking about them. He watched the news and saw the impact they were making, not with big donations, but with meaningful, lasting solutions. He saw a new kind of power, one that came from connection, not control. Eventually, he picked up the phone and called his wife. "Funke," he said gently, "I need to see Michael and Zainab." Mrs. Adewale arranged a quiet dinner at a private restaurant. When Michael, Zainab, and Mrs. Adewale arrived, Chief Adewale was already there, looking small at the big table. It was awkward at first. Michael was quiet, Zainab polite, but cautious. Mrs. Adewale helped ease the tension, talking about Michael's childhood and Zainab's work. Finally, Chief Adewale looked at Zainab. "I heard your speech," he said, voice rough. It was powerful. He paused, trying to find the words. "I was wrong. About you. About Michael." Michael looked surprised. He continued, facing Zainab. "I judged you based on where you came from, and I tried to push Michael into a life that wasn't his. I wanted to build an empire, but I almost destroyed my family." He sighed. "You two have built something real, something that matters, and now I see it's worth more than anything I've ever built." He turned to Michael. "Son, I've been a fool. I cut you off when all you did was follow your heart and do the right thing. I'm sorry." Michael was overwhelmed. He stood, hugged his father, and in that silent embrace, years of pain and misunderstanding melted away. Zainab, watching, felt deep emotion, a quiet victory. The dinner turned warm and full of genuine conversation. Chief Adewale asked questions about their work, listening carefully, finally seeing their vision. A few weeks later, he invited them to his office at the Adewale Group's headquarters. The space, once intimidating, now felt different. He told them, "I've thought about this a lot. The Adewale Group is big. It needs new leadership, someone who understands people, not just profits." He looked at them seriously. "I want Michael to take over. And Zainab, I want you to help guide our company into this new future. Your values, your heart, they're exactly what this company needs." Michael was speechless. Zainab asked thoughtful questions, already thinking of how to bring change. It was a powerful moment. Michael, the son who had once walked away from all of this, was now returning, not for approval, but to lead with honor. Zainab, once dismissed as a nobody, was now seen as a partner, a visionary. Together, they accepted the challenge to reshape the Adewale Group into something more meaningful, to prove that true success isn't just about money, but about people, purpose, and lasting impact. Their story, of a billionaire's son and a poor girl from the street, became a story of love, redemption, and the kind of wealth that really matters.